Hi, and welcome to the program. I'm Bob Crimmins, and this is Living in the West. Well, a few weeks ago, I was thinking about doing a program on the state capitol building, so I, of course, went to Google and did that thing, and it didn't give me what I was looking for. I found the state capitol, I found out what time they're open, I found out a few other things about the state capitol, but I didn't find any wonderful pictures, and I didn't find any great stories or anything like that. So I thought I'd better get on down to the state capitol, of which I did, to find someone that could help me. And I did find someone. His name is Eric Thompson. He's here with us today. And he's one of the gentlemen that will walk around with you and give you a tour of the state capitol. But today we're going to give you your own private tour, so sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Eric to the program.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely, Eric. Thank you for showing.
Oh, certainly.
Bringing all those wonderful pictures. I saw some of them earlier. I'm really excited about seeing what you brought.
All right. Well, I'm happy to show them to you.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sorry to hear about your lack of results searching for Google.
Yeah, you know, that really surprised me, Eric. I thought it'd be loaded with stuff. I don't know. I just did Google, and it usually takes you to a whole bunch of sites.
Usually does. We do have a website. I'll show you the URL at the end. That's a good source of information.
Good.
But sorry about their lack of results. But hope to remedy that today.
Okay.
But it's funny you should mention that, because I'd like to say that the Capitol, although it's a public building, it's a government building, people are welcome to come inside the Capitol building where the Capitol Museum is located. Despite being such a public building, it does have its own share of mysteries and secrets, and I'd like to talk about some of those mysteries today.
Very good.
First one I'd like to talk about actually began in 1865, before the building was even constructed, and it was not solved until decades later. Now, stories about the state capitol, what happened at the state capitol, but actually it begins at Old City Cemetery, where we'll see this plaque for Jane Norris, 1832 to 1899. Let me read the plaque, and you'll see the connection it has with the Capitol. On April 11th, 1865, a Sacramento woman hatched a secret plan to celebrate the end of the Civil War. Upon learning of Robert E. Lee's surrender to Northern troops, Jane Norris marched to the state capitol's construction site. While the workmen were away at lunch, she climbed 2 ladders to the highest point of the building. You can see that there at the top of the Capitol on that plaque, planting an American flag and leaving a note. "Gentlemen, I have had the pleasure of climbing the ladder and placing the stars and stripes. 3 cheers for Uncle Abe and Cabinet." A poor but patriotic woman, and she signed it "A Lady." Curiosity about the author spread quickly, but Jane Norris, you'll see a picture of her here, kept her identity hidden for the rest of her life. Even still, the mystery woman became famous for raising the first American flag at the California State Capitol. Jane's daughter finally revealed her mother's identity to a reporter in 1929. Jane Norris rests here in the city cemetery, a Sacramento patriot whose actions have not been forgotten. Now, 165 words tells the story of Jane Norris. It's all true, but doesn't tell quite the complete story. One piece you should know right off the bat is that the next day, April 12th, 1865, the workmen at the construction site, they raised funds and they bought and installed a 75-foot flagpole and large American flag, apparently embarrassed by the fact that this anonymous but patriotic woman beat them to the punch. Now, when I first heard the story of Jane Norris, I was all ready to say she should get a plaque in Memorial Grove. You see Memorial Grove here. You'll notice the 2 large trees in the background. Memorial Grove, about 40 sapling trees were sent in 1897 to Capitol Park from various Civil War battle sites, historic sites. Only a few of them still remain, but you can see how large they are. That flagpole you saw, normally there is a 33-star flag that flies off of that. You can see the design of it here. It has a unique diamond-shaped pattern on that flag. It's an appropriate flag to fly to Civil War Memorial Site because it was the same flag that Major, well, not the exact same flag, but the same design, that Major Robert Anderson lowered on April 14th, 1865. You can see him there, or 1861, I should say. At the beginning of the Civil War, the bombardment of Fort Sumter had started 2 days earlier on the 12th. And then it was the exact same flag that Brevet Major Major General Robert Anderson, he rose through the ranks through the years, raised the flag again above Fort Sumter. You can see it right here. Now, appropriate place to put a plaque. She might have raised that same design 33-star flag. Memorial Grove is very near where the Norris house was located on L Street. So very ready to put a plaque there, wanted to put one there, appropriate place to do it. But then I found an extra piece of information to the story. I found this letter at the California State Archives. Let me read it for you. It says, "To His Excellency F.F. Lowe, Governor of California, the mechanics and laborers employed on the State Capitol building, having a desire to raise the American flag on the building, rotunda, would respectfully solicit your permission for such. And if Your Excellency grant our request, we are in hopes to have it raised on the ever-memorable 12th of April, the beginning of the bombardment. On behalf of the workmen, I am your most obedient servant, Daniel Penman." There's no date on the letter, but likely it was 1865. The war was ending, victory was in sight, and it was time to celebrate. So Jane Norris's flag raising, the workmen's flag raising the day later. Perhaps they were two independent celebrations. Don't be so sure, however. One of the workmen on the state capitol site, Daniel Penman signed on behalf of the workmen, was Amos Norris. He was the husband of Jane Norris. So most likely, I would assume, since they raised funds from the workers to pay for the flagpole, that he knew about these plans beforehand. And who knows, he may have told his wife, Jane, about those plans. So you wonder, why did she go up on the 11th if there was going to be a major flag raising on the 12th? So you kind of have to wonder. The question, did she not have any idea? Did her husband not tell her about the planned flag raising? Did she know of the plan, but not the exact date it was planned, and was just getting anxious, wanted to raise the flag, to get things going? Or perhaps she knew completely about the plans to raise the flag on March 12th and just decided to beat the workmen to the punch. Unfortunately, the answer to that now lies 6 feet under that plaque at Old City Cemetery. We'll never know what went through Mrs. Norris's mind. Now, I'll show you the plot as well. So, as you can see, buried 6 feet under Old City Cemetery, a worthwhile visit if you're in Sacramento. Now, like Jane Norris, employees still climb to the heights of the Capitol, but not to plant flags, but to change the light bulbs. I get the question every so often, people in the dome, in the Capitol, they look up at the dome and they say, how do they change the light bulbs? That dome, that oculus, that's the round window at the very top, is about 120 feet above ground level. So those light bulbs, that ring of bulbs around, at least 100 feet off the ground, how do they change the light bulbs? Well, this is not the same dome you saw from the outside. This is the interior dome. The exterior dome, you can see in this picture, the gold ball on the very top is just shy of 220 feet above ground level. You can sort of see the silhouette of the interior dome on the lower level through the window. So you can see there's a good height difference between the two. Well, the workmen, what they do is they go onto the other side of that inner dome. They're still inside the building. Not exactly a very hospitable place, but they're still inside the building. They're still protected from the elements. They go through those round windows you saw earlier, and then they take out those round windows. They put in, you see that steel cage. I liken it to one of those things you'll have at the bottom of your shower to catch hair. In this case, it's to make sure people don't fall through. Department of General Services employee puts on a safety harness, gets strapped in, reaches out, takes out the old light bulb, puts in the new. He's talking to some other workers just behind him. One of them's on a radio, talking to another state worker, saying, up, down, left, right, which, because he can't see what he's doing in that little cage. So if you ever wonder how many state workers does it change a light bulb, it actually takes, I believe, five people to change a light bulb. In case you ever wondered. Now, how do they change the light bulbs is a common question I get in the state capitol. But an uncommon question I sometimes get, well, actually I got only once, in the state Senate, someone asked me, he was completely serious, why do you have a picture of Abraham Lincoln dressed as a clown? Now, we do not have a picture of Abraham Lincoln dressed as a clown. We do have a portrait of Abraham Lincoln. It's in the Assembly, but in the California State Senate, we have a portrait of George Washington. You can see there. It's one of our prized possessions in the state capitol. Now, interesting story. Obviously, George Washington, but interesting story behind it. That was a gift to the state, or it came to California, I should say, in 1851. So we know it goes back at least that far. It was given as a gift to the state Senate in 1854. And it was been hanging in the state capitol since 1869, when the building first opened for legislative business. Now, You might wonder, Senate got it in 54, they didn't put it in the building, in the Capitol until 69. What did they do with it for 15 years? Well, one place they kept it was the first Capitol at Sacramento. It was the courthouse, but it was temporarily served as the state Capitol. They had it there at that first Capitol. It stands or used to stand where the county jail is today, at the corner of 7th and I Streets. Unfortunately, though, that building, along with most of the rest of downtown Sacramento, burned to the ground in the Great Fire of July of 1854. As you might imagine, just about everybody trying to get out of that burning courthouse as quickly as possible. No one's really interested in saving a large portrait of George Washington, with the very important exception of one man, and I say very important because his name was John Bigler. You'll see his portrait here. He was governor of California at the time. He wanted to save that portrait. He knew he couldn't do it by himself. He knew he needed help. So he called out to the fleeing men around him, "Look, there is a portrait of the father of your country. Will you permit it to be destroyed?" That rallied the patriotic spirit in the men's hearts. They ran back into the burning courthouse, saved that portrait of Washington, and it's been hanging in our state capitol ever since 1869. So one of our prized possessions we have. Now, Governor Bigler, very popular for leading the charge to save the portrait, but he was already popular with the legislature before that. In fact, the year before, 1853, the state legislature named a lake in his honor. Now, you may have visited Lake Bigler at some point in your life. I had no idea you were visiting Lake Bigler, because after he left office, the American Civil War came, and Governor Bigler showed Confederate tendencies, and so his name fell out of favor. So eventually, on maps, it took a little while. Lake Bigler disappeared, and then eventually, as you can see, it's Lake Tahoe. So don't know if you knew that, Bob, but Lake Tahoe, up until around 1900s, that's the most recent date I've seen that it still says Lake Bigler. You were visiting Lake Bigler if you visited Lake Tahoe. Now, because of his political beliefs, Governor Bigler lost his lake, but another lawmaker lost his life for what he believed in. Now, some people asked in the Senate where the Washington portrait is located, there is also a bust down on the floor. I have a close-up of the bust on the next picture. That is Senator David Broderick. Now, he's dressed in a toga to put him on that same level of the great Greek and Roman orators, lawmakers of ancient days. But he's a mid-19th century American. Just prior to the Civil War, he was a California state senator, and after that, he was a U.S. senator representing California. Now, just prior to the American Civil War, the Democratic Party was severely split along the lines of slavery. Senator Broderick, he was a Northern Democrat. In fact, he was an abolitionist, but the Northern Democrats were against the expansion of slavery. Now, there were also the Southern Democrats who were in favor of the expansion of slavery. William Gwin, you see on the screen, he was the other U.S. Senator from California at the time, and he was a Southern Democrat. So both Democrats, both technically members of the same party, but did not get along very well because of that divisive issue of slavery. Now, add to this already very volatile mixture, Chief Justice David Terry, also a Southern Democrat. Now, he was Chief Justice of the California State Supreme Court. Now, unlike the federal system, California state court system, justices on the state Supreme Court need to run for re-election, popular re-election every 12 years. Well, Chief Justice David Terry ran for re-election and he lost his re-election bid. And he blamed Senator Broderick for the loss. Now, it's interesting because when they were coming up through the political ranks, Senator Broderick was the senior statesman, and he helped out David Terry early in his political career. So they used to be friends. They used to be companions. But because of this divisive issue of slavery, because Terry lost his seat on the California State Supreme Court, he blamed his former mentor for the loss. Well, insults, arguments went back and forth. Senator Broderick, referring to the fact that they used to be friends, he used to be Terry's mentor, called Terry a damned miserable wretch, which apparently was a lot worse insult back in 1859 than it is today, because Terry demanded that Broderick take back that insult. Broderick refused, and so Terry challenged him to a duel. Last major American duel in history, in American history, took place on September 13th, 1859, where Broderick, unfortunately, you can see him on the left, was shot and mortally wounded. He lingered on and died several days later. And so to honor the fact that he stood up for what he believed in, even on the field of honor, his bust was placed in the California State Senate. Now, this next picture, you might wonder, what does this have to do with anything? That is Governor Milton Latham. One of our governor's portraits, we have portraits of all 38 of them throughout the Capitol building. I get the question sometimes, they'll look at the plaque, you can't read it here, but they'll look at the plaque just below the portrait, and it says he was governor from the 9th of January, 1860 to the 14th of January, 1860. He was governor for 5 days. Well, what happened? Did he die in office? That's what most people think. No. What happened? Because of that vacancy in the U.S. Senate after Broderick's death, we needed to fill. We needed another U.S. senator to replace the deceased Senator Broderick. Well, it was considered to be more prestigious to be a U.S. senator rather than the governor of California. So Governor Latham was elected and decided he'd rather be a U.S. senator. He got the state legislature. This is back when the state legislature elected U.S. senators rather than popular vote. Got them to elect him as a U.S. senator. He served as a U.S. senator from 1860 to 1863. So it was unfortunate for Broderick. Terry and Gwynn didn't end up very well, but it worked out nicely for Milton Latham. But that's why he was governor for only 5 days. Now, Milton Latham, he was our sixth governor, and he served too early to have worked in the Capitol. But when the Capitol was being built, someone left a hidden secret in the governor's office. You just saw a picture of the governor's office. It was a 1906 governor's office. It's a recreation of what it looked like back in 1906. It's part of the state Capitol Museum. Now, in 1939, there was a renovation, and they took down, renovated the governor's office, and they found behind a wall, they took out a piece of molding, and on the back of that molding was written in pencil, Joseph Au, Cleveland, Ohio, C.H. Lincoln, Omaha, Nebraska, September 20th, 1869. Who will live to take this out is more than we know. Now, Joseph Au was born in Canada in 1841. He spent time in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Montana, and eventually arrived in California in 1869. Now, Au family lore claims that he designed the dome on the Capitol. You can see it there. He arrived too late in California to design the dome. Perhaps he worked on the dome, but did not design the dome. But what he did do, between 1878 and 1896, he designed, built, or remodeled around 24 homes and buildings in Sacramento. Unfortunately, only 2 of them still exist. There is this one, 1107 F Street, and also 1706 P Street. Most of his buildings, unfortunately, fell victim to new government state buildings and nondescript apartment houses. But he was a noted architect here in Sacramento. Now, in fact, Joseph Au, just like he said, he did not live to see who would take out that piece, because as you can see at his grave, his tombstone here in, once again, Old City Cemetery, he died in 1897, so more than 30 years before that piece was finally taken out. So a little mystery that, unfortunately, that Joseph Au left, but never lived to see the resolution of that mystery. Now, Joseph Au, one of the first people probably to leave his signature in the Capitol, but he certainly wasn't the last. In the 1970s, we found out that the state Capitol was in very poor shape and it might fall down in an earthquake. There was talk about tearing it down and replacing it with this ugly monstrosity. Fortunately, that didn't happen. We decided to renovate the building to keep it as our state Capitol. You can see a group picture of all the people who worked on the Capitol. You can see the renovations going on in the front, in the pediment. The pediment's been removed. But you can see hundreds of people worked on the building. Many of them, they realized how important, just how big this project was, and they decided they wanted to sign their names to it, like a painter signing a painting. Now, in some cases, something put in backwards or upside down, or a signature or initials somewhere where it's not easily seen, or something added that was not supposed to be there. Now, I don't have time to tell you about all of them, but I'll tell you about a few of them to get to wet your whistle for a trip to the state Capitol. The more popular ones, you see this is a grotesque. That's basically an indoor gargoyle. That is on the ceiling of the Senate. All the corners in the Senate, if you look at the coffered ceiling, are leaves. They're oak leaves, but in this case, there is a gargoyle, kind of making it, well, it's a grotesque, I should say, making a funny face down at the speaker's rostrum. So that's a very well-known one. Another one you'll see on this floor. Bob, can you see anything wrong with this picture? Look right in the center.
It looks like the middle one isn't the same as the other two.
Exactly. You can see right there, all the flowers on the second floor rotunda, the little petals are sticking out. That one right there, pointed out by the arrows, they're pointing inward. Not a mistake, not an accident. That was done on purpose as a signature. Another well-known signature in the building. This is on the first floor rotunda. Can you tell the difference between these two sides, the left side and the right side, Bob?
Boy, they're real close, aren't they?
They are very close. You give up?
I think there's more. Okay, I quit.
All right. You can see right there. On the left side, there is that extra leaf. On the right side, there is not.
My goodness.
Every panel that we have in the state, in the rotunda of the state capitol, is missing the leaf except for the one on the left. Has that extra leaf. So another well-known little signature.
Yeah.
Now, there's about 2 or 3 dozen of these signatures throughout the building. They're still being discovered, believe it or not. They're still being discovered. We have one more I'll show you. If you look on the left side, compare it to the right. You see the difference between the left and the right sides there, Bob?
They were good at fooling folks, weren't
Yes,
they?
well, they didn't want to make anything too big. They just wanted to sneak it in.
Yeah, they did. No.
All right, the difference here, you can see on the left side, that band is solid, and on the right side, it's broken in two.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
single one on the ceiling in the Senate has that solid band, except for that one on the right that has that broken band.
Oh.
This was found not too long ago, actually, by a 4th grader who just happened to be looking up at the ceiling and said, hey, there's a difference there. And so, like I said, they're still being discovered. So come to the Capitol. You might see one of these differences, discover one of these differences yourself. Now, I will give you a clue. There are a few more. Probably the most common ones you'll see. This is underneath one of the staircases, this little medallion. You can see right in the center, there is that round egg. Officially, it's supposed to be left blank, but in many of them, there's initials or little symbols. So those are the most easily found if you go underneath the staircases. There is one, I will tell you, it's on the Senate side. The Senate side staircase is a bit of adult in nature, Bob, so I won't show you here. But if you want to go take a look for it yourself, you can find it in the Senate staircase. Now, on the west side of the state capitol, you'll see the Great Seal, large bronze Great Seal of the state of California. And there's something that I hear some people call a signature, a little clandestine signature, but it really isn't. What it is kind of a mystery, but it's not a signature. You can see, I got a closer picture of it for you, in the upper left-hand corner of that building. I've heard rumors, and I take every opportunity, and thank you, Bob, for giving me this opportunity to quash this rumor. The rumor is that the inmates at San Quentin Prison who created the seal back in 1952, that part is true. It was created by San Quentin prisoners back in 1952. They wanted to sign their names to it. Well, according to the story, they weren't allowed to. The governor, or the legislature, or the warden, whoever said, no, you're prisoners. You are not allowed to sign your name to this piece of art. And so they snuck this building in, which supposedly had never appeared in the seal before. Nobody noticed it until it was too late. And so it was decided, hey, okay, we'll try to cover our tracks, and we'll just add that building to the seal. Well, like I said, except for that very first part, none of that is true. You can see it was not placed by the prisoners in 1952. You can see here, this is a letterhead, official government letterhead. It's an artistic rendition of the seal. You can see the bear, the gold miner, the ships, and you can see the building in the background. So as early as 1886, it was already appearing in unofficial symbols or unofficial seals of California. Doesn't have a dome. You look at it, what is that? Well, my guess, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, is that it's meant to represent Fort Point in San Francisco. You can see it here underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, Civil War era fort. Probably added, my guess is, to give San Francisco more of a claim on the geography of the state seal. Officially, it's the Sacramento River and the Sierra Nevada, but somebody decided along the lines, well, I'm going to put a little break, Golden Gate in the seal, and I'm going to add, somebody else added later on, Fort Point, to say, no, this isn't Sacramento River, that's not the Sierra Nevada, this is San Francisco. Now, you can see a later version, this is 1895, this is in the California Blue Book. You can see the building now has been given a dome. I don't know why. I have no idea why the person who drew the seal put on a dome, but there it is. There is that dome, and it looks very much like it does in that large seal at the west steps. They continue to have a dome in 1939. You can see this seal. This is in the Ronald Reagan building, State Building in Los Angeles. It originally was in the old State Building that was torn down in the 1970s, but moved to the Reagan building. Once again, very similar building, nice and blocky, 3 windows, the dome on the top, and so you can compare that once again to the building here. So obviously the prisoners did not add it, nor did they change the look of it to resemble a building on San Quentin. There's no building ever at San Quentin history that ever looked like that. Some other strikes against it. The building is on the wrong side of the bay to be San Quentin. It's on the San Francisco side, not on the Marin County side where San Quentin is located. And I've also found 4 very detailed accounts of post-1952 accounts describing the seal in detail, and none of them make any mention of the building. So it sounds like it was always there. So that rumor that it being San Quentin is false. Now you might wonder, where did that come from? You might be wondering that, Bob. My guess is this seal. This is on the State Resources Building, built in 1964-65. On this seal, you can see in the background, let me give you a close-up on it. The building, the version on this seal, looks very much, and I've never seen a seal that has a building quite like this. I've seen it as lighthouses, as missions, as forts. Never seen anyone that looks like this. If you take a look at this and compare it to this next picture, there's San Quentin. It looks an awful lot like the front gates of San Quentin. So my theory is, haven't been able to prove this, but my theory is the artist who made that seal on the Resources Building wanted to make it look like San Quentin, or perhaps it was just a coincidence, but wanted to make it look like San Quentin. That seal on the Resources Building got confused with the state seal in front of the State Capitol building, because they are very close, they're very similar, and so the story just grew from there. So no, Bob, it is not San Quentin. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the State Capitol, more mysteries of the State Capitol, I can't tell you all in the time that we have, but you can come visit us. You can see our contact information, California State Capitol Museum. We are actually within the State Capitol. We are a division unit of California State Parks. We're located at 1315 10th Street, Sacramento. You can call us at 916-324-0333. Allison or I or one of our fellow guides will be happy to answer your questions. Our website, Capitol Museum, that's Capitol with an O, capitolmuseum.ca.gov. Or if you're interested, if you're a school teacher, you want to bring your class to the Capitol, you can't quite do it for whatever reason, through teleconferencing, through the PORTS program, we can bring the Capitol to you. So that website, if you're interested in that, ports.parks.ca.gov. So that's how you get in contact with us and learn a little bit more information about the Capitol.
Well, listen, I think you could go on for an hour, 2 hours,
I could.
3 hours.
I routinely do on my job.
There's a lot down there.
There is.
You really didn't touch hardly anything.
No, there were several stories I wanted to bring, but just couldn't fit it in the time.
There are stories just outside with those trees and the land and who owned it and who it was bought from and all kinds of things. I think we should do another program on this.
All right, that's fine.
And kind of do a part 1, part 2 on the State Capitol.
Sounds good. I'll have more stories for you.
I know you will, and you're very good at what you do, by the way. I want to tell you that. Yes, you make it very interesting. So
I try.
Thank you very much
Thank you, Bob, for having
joining us. And for all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed our program, and join in again sometime when we'll be doing another program. You don't know what we're going to be doing here. Maybe we're going to be doing the Pony Express next time. Who knows? Tune in to see. So in the meantime, take care out there, and just remember we have a nice place to live in out here, living in the West.